Math 97, Quiz 4 Topics. Simplifying a product of higher radical expressions. First of all, we need a particular property to help us to do this. Just like with the square root, if we have the nth root of a times the nth root of b, that's equal to the nth root of a times b. So we've been using n equals 2. Now in this case we'll discover we can do it with higher numbers for n, like 3 and 5. So our directions say simplify, assume the variable represents a positive real number. In the first example we have the third root of 10u to the 7th times the third root of 4u squared. When we're working with higher radicals, it's often helpful to break down the whole numbers into their primes. And so we could rewrite 10 as 2 times 5, and we would rewrite 4 as 2 times 2. So then using this property above, we would have the third root of 2 times 5 u to the 7th times 2 times 2 u squared. All right, combining the numbers together, notice that we have 3 copies of this 2, and so that would be 2 to the 3rd times 5, and then u to the 7th times u squared would be u to the 7 plus 2, or u to the 9th. When we take the cube root, we want the exponent to be divisible by 3. And so as long as there are 3 copies of something, it would come outside the radical as a single copy. And so there's 3 copies of the 2, and so that comes outside the radical as a single 2. So we think of that as 2 to the 3 divided by 3, or 2 to the first power. 5, we cannot take the cube root of 5, so we'll leave it under the cube root. And then u to the 9th, the 9 divides by 3 and is 3, and so this would be u to the 3rd on the outside. And so the final answer here is 2u to the 3rd times the cube root of 5. In our second example, we have cube root of 16y to the 3rd times cube root of 8y. Again, let's break down the whole numbers into primes. 16 is the same as 4 times 4, or 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, or 2 to the 4th power. 8 is the same as 2 times 4, or 2 times 2 times 2, or 2 to the 3rd power. So let's use this property above to rewrite this product under a single radical. So we have cube root of 2 to the 4th y to the 5th times 2 to the 3rd y. Combining these together, we have cube root of 2 to the 4 plus 3, or 2 to the 7th power, times y to the 5 plus 1, or y to the 6th power. You'll notice here that 3 does not perfectly divide into 7. And so what we want is the highest power less than or equal to 7 that 3 does divide into, so that would be 6. So let's break down the 2 to the 7th into 2 to the 6th times 2, and then we'll leave this as y to the 6th. So now I can take cube root of 2 to the 6th by dividing this exponent by 3. So 6 divided by 3 would be 2. So that's 2 squared on the outside. I still have this 2, since it's to the 1st power, underneath the radical. And then this y to the 6th, I'd do 6 divided by 3 would be 2. So y squared on the outside. And finally, I'll just simplify this 2 squared. So 2 squared is 4, and then we have y squared cube root of 2, and that is our final answer on number 2. Next, let's move to example 3. The 5th root of 9w to the 3rd times the 5th root of 54w to the 8th. All right, 9 would break into 3 times 3, and then 54 can break into 9 times 6, which would be 3 times 3 times 3 times 2. And so another way to think of that is 3 squared here, 3 to the third times 2 here. So using this property, we have the cube root, we have the fifth root this time of 3 squared w to the third times 3 to the third times 2 w to the eighth. All right, so let's combine all of our 3's together. 3 to the second and 3 to the third would make 3 to the fifth. And then we have a 2. And then w to the third times w to the eighth would make w to the 11th. Okay, so now, since we're taking the fifth root, we want exponents that 5 can divide into perfectly. So that first one is okay. It's not going to be able to divide into 2 to the first, so we'll leave that alone. But the w to the 11th, we can break this down. The highest number less than or equal to 11 that 5 goes into is 10. So let's do w to the 10th times w for that one. So now, fifth root of 3 to the fifth would just be 3. Fifth root of 2 we'll have to leave under the radical. And then fifth root of w to the 10th, we do 10 divided by 5 would be 2. So this is w squared on the outside. And then leave the w under the radical. So our final answer for the last one is 3w squared times the fifth root of 2w.